If you remember, at the first quarter of 2025, the market just took a dump. That commitment started to look real tight, but we persevered. We definitely believe in that your mindset sets everything else. So your thoughts lead to actions, which lead to results. Eric puts on there 100 units by the end of next year. I told him he needs to add a zero to that. Now that's pretty ambitious, but we're kind of ending up right about in the middle. He had 100, I put 1,000, and so we'll just come right about almost 400 by the end of the year.
We've built a great network of people. Our goal is to get much more active on the acquisition side and taking a deal down here in Florida.
Try to accomplish 10 years worth of goals in 6 months. Even though you'll fail, you'll do more than what you would have done if you just set smaller goals.
Welcome back to Multifamily Rockstar. So as you guys know, these are the episodes we dive deep into our guest deals and we give you practical and actionable items for actually getting started and doing your first deal, especially if you're brand new to multifamily. And I've got my co-host Mark Nagy with me here as usual.
Yeah, what's going on, Rod? I'm excited. We're stacked this week, man. We got six interviews with warriors that have done some deals, so we got a lot of good stuff.
Kidding.
But I'm excited for this one.
Is that many? Wow. Well, we've got a great interview for you guys today. We've got Erik and Jeffrey Freeman. They're both ex-military, which I just admire like crazy. Thank you for your service, gentlemen, before we get started here. But they've done a ton of stuff, and I'm not even going to try to talk about all the things that they've done. I want them to tell you their story. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So why don't you, one of you, or take the lead here and just tell us, why real estate, maybe when you joined the program, and kind of bring us current, what you did in military as well. That's kind of cool. I love hearing about that too. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I guess for the real estate side, we both have been in single family residential for probably the better part of 15 years. We did it separately. I had been at different military stations, bought a house and moved, and became a accidental landlord. And so we had several rental properties. About a year and a half ago, Eric and I decided that we needed to join forces and take on bigger projects and start to scale this and build a real business out of it. From there, we quickly discovered that we needed some professional help, and we needed to get either a mentor or get into a warrior group, some kind of mastermind group that could help us accelerate in this profession. And so we shopped around. We went to a couple different conventions. We actually interviewed with some other, mentoring groups out there, some local. And then we came across Rod's group, actually on his live Facebook, Ask Me Anything questions, right? And he said, text Crush to learn more. And so we text Crush to find out more about the warrior group. From there, we had our interview sessions where we were able to walk through what our needs are. And so we ended up joining the warrior group. We went to the boot camp in November. And,
in Orlando? The Orlando
right.
boot camp? Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
A year ago, exactly. Yep.
So,
and
so Jeff dragged me to that boot camp.
Did
he actually bought my ticket and my son's ticket. My son, who is 17 now. Because we had talked about it. My brother's an action taker, and he said, "Hey, I got your ticket. You're going." And so that was my introduction to you, Rod.
And it's been all downhill from there, right?
So, it was great. No, it was great, but it was really neat. My brother, like he said, he interviewed, he did all the legwork, and then he said, "Hey,
I'm so glad your boy was there. I'm so glad your boy was there. I'd forgotten that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I love impacting, teenagers. Just love that. So I hope I fired him up a little bit,
Oh, that's great. Yes. Yeah.
That's
he doesn't
awesome.
want to go to college now. He wants to get into real estate. So thanks a lot for that.
Yeah. Well, we can have a conversation about that. You know how I feel about that. In fact, we just did. In fact, before we started recording, I was telling these guys I had a virtual boot camp this last weekend. And the last panel, there was an orthopedic surgeon and a pediatric dentist. And then I did a little conversation around, hey, I believe in college for technical things. And but there's a lot of people that don't really get much and never use their degree for anything. And it was just perfect timing because I had those guys on, and they have thousands and thousands and thousands of units. But anyway, so tell us more. Tell us, it looks like Erik, you were in the Navy, and Jeff was in the Army. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I went to the Merchant Marine Academy for school. I was, born and raised in Florida. First time seeing snow was up there in New York. Long Island, where I went to college, and then was in the reserves for 10 years after that.
Hmm.
Had an engineering degree, worked on a lot of power plants across the country. But yeah, so I was in for 10 years, and through the academy, great experience. Wouldn't trade it for anything. Good.
Right.
Yeah, my
And
story
you,
was a little bit different. I ran out of money while going through college, and so I joined the Army so that they would finish paying for school. Went in as active duty as an officer and spent 7 years in the Army and immediately got deployed during that duration and spent, the next 7 years going back and forth between deployments and stuff like that, and finally had enough and decided that it was time for us to focus on our family.
So
nice, nice.
how have you guys
Where do
been
you guys?
able? Go
Hold
ahead.
on, one last question. Where do you guys live, by the way? Do you live near each other or no?
We live in Florida. I live in St. Augustine. My brother lives in Melbourne, so we're about two and a half
Oh,
hours from each
oh,
other.
you're
Both in
close.
Florida.
Okay, you guys are
East
down here where
Coast.
you belong. Florida. I love Florida.
That's right.
All right,
Gotcha.
Mark.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, my business
Mark.
partner's in St. Augustine. Maybe we'll have to get together for something at some
Oh,
point.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I know if I were to work with my brother, we'd probably be butting heads all the time. How have you guys been able to kind of segment your skill sets and play different roles? And I don't know if anything in the military helped you kind of figure out what your superpower might be in multifamily, but how have you guys been able to do
Uh,
that and
I,
figure out what to play?
I can answer that question for him. Okay. All right. So Eric, you're an engineer, yes?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're analytical, and you're probably introverted as well, yes?
Very much so. Yes.
Okay, and we know Jeff isn't because Jeff
That's
dragged
right.
your ass to my boot camp. So
Exactly
there's the
right.
answer right there. You got yin and yang going on here. Because and I'm the mouthpiece in any relationship that I have, and that's a match made in heaven, man. When you get those two combinations, because you've got the empirical piece of this, you got to have the numbers, right? And then you also
Yeah.
have to build relations. Sorry, I stole your thunder, but I couldn't help it. When you told me you're an engineer, I knew the answer. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. And at the boot camp, and obviously being in front of people and being, putting some YouTube videos and posts is important. And that is not that's not what I enjoy doing. But my brother
Right.
is, really had complemented, that weakness very well. And he makes a bunch
Yeah.
of YouTube videos. People love him, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah, I want to
Right.
hear all about that because I think you can add some value there for sure. Well, let's talk about your first deal if you don't mind. Let's go right to it. Whichever one you wants to start, let's talk about that first deal.
Yeah. Tell us the
Sure.
number, how you got into this deal, because you guys were just telling us you had an interesting story of how you met these people. So just start from the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, good.
For
Yeah.
sure. We went to the boot camp. There's a lot of great panelists there. And it was kind of serendipitous. You had My wife had just got back from a Costa Rica trip, and she had an amazing experience. And she said, Jeff, you got to go one day. I said, okay. And we have 6 kids, by the way. I know we haven't got to that
Wow.
part. We have 6 kids.
Wow.
And
Wow.
the last day of the boot camp, there's a flyer for a Costa Rica trip, and it's put on by other warriors. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to her. I said, "You won't believe this." And she said, "You have to go." And I came up with every excuse of why it was a terrible timing. It was right before Christmas. We're already, spending time at this boot camp and other stuff, and we had other things going on. Had every excuse not to go, and she convinced me to go and step out. And so we were able to network with some great folks there, some other warriors. And then when we got back, Eric had actually networked with some of the same folks, and we didn't know it, but it happened at different times with the same warrior group. And then we got a phone call in January asking if we were interested in partnering on a deal. I skipped over a few steps, Eric, if you want to cover
Well,
down.
let me interject a couple of things. Okay, I allowed them to throw that flyer out because ego hit because they flew me down and let me speak there. So that was yeah, and that's where I met you there, and that was wonderful. And I love Costa Rica. My God, I would absolutely have a second place there. But yeah, please continue from there. I just had to throw a little color on it.
Yeah. Eric, tell them about where you met some of the same folks, and we didn't know that we were paralleling efforts, really.
Yeah, so just kind of funny story. I did, as much as I'm not a social media person, I did my introduction post, on the Warrior website or the Facebook page, and started getting some calls and setting up some different discussions and with different lawyers, and ran across one. In fact, ran across Iggy, and we pretty much just talked about just fun stuff, surfing, like our kids, my kids and stuff, and what they were up to. He was actually in California at the time, surfing, and just hit it off really well. We talked about some of what I could offer, what me and Jeff could offer, um, and then kind of left it at that and said, yeah, we'll do a deal together one day, and kept in touch. Well, we didn't realize that he was partners with some of the people that Jeff was actually spending time with in Costa Rica at the time. They get back, from the trip, and they start talking. They're like, oh yeah, I was with this guy Jeff Freeman in Costa Rica, and Iggy's like, well, I think I was talking to his brother Eric Freeman, and so it just kind of happened, and then that's how we got the call uh, to join
Nice.
their team
Yeah,
and
he's a
help.
beautiful soul. He's such a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the pediatric dentist I was referring to earlier. So tell us about the deal.
So the deal's in South Carolina, and we like to focus on the Southeast. We like the East Coast, and we like Florida in particular, but we've also vacationed. I used to live in Georgia. Eric's vacationed many times in South Carolina, so we're very familiar with the area. It's 168 units, pretty big asset to get in for our first deal. The
Hmm.
purchase price was 24 million, and the raise was right about 10 million for that project. So it was a really huge undertaking.
Wow.
Um, we committed to, helping raise capital and being part of investor relations with that one. We actually wanted to participate in the due diligence as well, so we asked to be on that schedule. We drove up there, showed up for due diligence, walked through the units, walked through the property, got to have some dinner with some other GPs that we hadn't been able to meet in person yet. And then, we just really had a great time. Everybody got, to meet each other, get to know each other better, and then, came back and started raising for that one. Um, and then if you remember at the first quarter of 2025, the market just took a dump with the, volatility. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of speculation with the tariffs, and all of a sudden, that commitment started to look real tight. And but we persevered. We definitely believe in that your mindset sets everything else, right? So your thoughts lead to actions, which lead to your results. And so
Yeah.
we stayed committed to raising. We faced some hurdles during that raise, but we persevered, and then came out with exceeding our goal.
Wow.
Nice. Nice. Nice.
Give us some practical stuff on that. How do you go about finding these people for raising money? What does that conversation look like? How does the conversation even start? Give it, for the listeners that are listening that have no idea how this stuff works.
Yeah, and your circle of friends is probably ex-military, and sadly, we don't pay our military nearly enough. So, what did you do to go out there and raise money? Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, talk about some of that. So, obviously it had some ups and downs, but
Hmm.
both of us have been, in the real estate space, right? So, I'm actually a hard money lender. I have a lot of investors I work with here locally, and so that was kind of our first step, was to reach out to some of these single family investors that are fix and flips, builders, and start bringing them and educating them over into the multifamily space. Um, and then, of course, friends and family is a big part of that. It basically started with just educating people, kind of like Jeff did with me originally. Like, showing them the numbers of what a single family investment looks like, and then how you can really scale that on a multifamily level.
Yeah.
And then, introducing them to the basically this multifamily space, and then to the specific deal.
Yeah, I think education is key when you can uh, teach your investors, especially new folks who have never got a chance to invest in a syndication before, but they've looked for the opportunities to invest in real estate. And you start educating them that you can pool your money together and you can buy these larger assets in a collective group rather than trying to tackle on something that's individually. They really get interested in it. And we just kept sharing our story. We would talk about things like what's NOI, what's a cap rate, what's CapEx. And then sooner than later, we actually had people reaching out to us and ask what we were working on. And then they soon became our first investors. These were friends either just following some of our videos, some of our social media posts, that we've been talking about some of these assets that we are looking at taking down, and our growth and the potential for some of these opportunities. So it really came full circle on just helping others find helping them find a great opportunity. And then they came full circle back to us.
It was the exact same way for me on my first raise, by the way. So very common. What makes this a good deal, by the way? Because if I'm reading this correctly, it's not a traditional value add. It's kind of a unique value add here. So tell us about that and what you guys are going to do with the property to make money on it.
Yeah, so I go ahead. Yeah, so this one, really wasn't about like you said, typical value add with a bunch of capex and improvements or bringing, the units, upgrading the units or anything. The big one on this one was a tax abatement. So there's affordable housing, as you guys probably are more than aware. It's a crisis in this country, especially for certain areas. Florida is another area around me in St. Johns County it's getting very expensive to live. So there's certain cities and counties are providing tax incentives for people to have affordable housing, and tax abatements is one of those strategies where the city or county will give you a deduction on your tax bill for keeping a certain amount of rents, within that a certain range. And so it's quite significant off the tax bill. So obviously reducing operating expenses, and that taxes raises NOI and makes your cash flow look a lot better. So this was
Wow.
just pretty much a tax abatement play.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So give us a little bit more detail on that. Like how many, what do you guys have to do? Is it a certain amount of units? Is it a certain percentage of the property you have to do that? What does that logistically look like?
That's right. So they have an AMI, right? So it's like 60-80% AMI for a certain amount of the units out of the 168. And then about 20% we can keep at full rent scale. And so we have to partner with a nonprofit, which we're already working on with our other GP team, and get that submitted, here this year so that we can implement it into next year's taxes. And that way it'll help boost up our NOI, which changes that valuation. Right now we have a short-term loan. It's a 3-year loan that we're looking to bridge that timeline, so that we can go into agency financing at a reduced rate, and then also, which helps us with that aspect too. And that that jumpstarts our cash flow right into that first to second year.
Do you know, why was the seller selling then? Were they unaware of this tax deal? Did they just not want to deal with it? Why did they want to sell the property if there was such a good incentive in place?
Right. Yeah. So actually, the lead sponsors on this deal, they had tried to purchase this 2 years prior at a higher price, and the seller wasn't ready to go. And then just after dealing with the ownership, that poor management and stuff like that, so they got tired of owning the property essentially, and then they reapproached our lead sponsors on this deal and said, "Hey, we're ready to sell." And then they negotiated a price. They actually got it for $2 million cheaper than what they had planned to buy it just prior. And so all the stars aligned, and it came to full fruition.
And 2 years of follow-up. Imagine that, right?
Hey,
And
that's
what
that's
that's gonna turn
that's
into for you guys.
that's
I know.
perseverance, by God. That's freaking
Yeah.
perseverance. I will tell you, I have lots of warriors that lose out on a best and final auction process on a property, and stay in touch with the broker when that first the offer they accepted falls through because they can't deliver or can't execute. They end up with the deal. It happens all the time, and this a little longer than normal, but the perseverance beats pretty much anything. So, how many total units have you guys been involved in since have you only been in the Warrior program a year? So, how many units?
Right.
Yeah, that unit, that deal with 168 units, and we're actually GPs on another one right now for 200 units.
Oh, fantastic! Congratulations. That's fantastic.
1 year goals. Eric we went to the boot camp, and you have us set our goals. Eric puts on there 100 units by the end of next year. I told him he needs to add a 0 to that. Now that's pretty ambitious, obviously, but we're kind of ending up right about in the middle. He had 100, I put 1,000, and so we'll just come right about,
Love it.
almost 400 by the end of the year.
Love it. Yeah, at my boot camps, everybody has to do their goals, and I'm glad to hear that you guys played full out in that process.
So obviously networking, you guys talked about that and how that helped you get into that deal. What are some of the other practical things that listeners can take away of stuff that you guys are doing on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis to move this business forward, get you to that 1,000, 2,000 door mark, whatever it might be? What are some of those specific things that you guys do?
Yeah, so it kind of, obviously me and Jeff have different strengths. So, Jeff is very much active on social media, reaching out. We've used a software called Evolvely to build out our website, start reaching out to people we know. on the multiple channels as far as Instagram, Facebook, and just really kind of focusing on that, right? Our circle that we're very comfortable with started right there, and then we're kind of expanding out. Like on and my side, it's more personal. So reaching out to some of the folks that I work with, with the lending investors that are active in the area, introducing them to the deals, working with some other brokers and things to kind of bring them. But it's kind of little steps each day, really. I wouldn't say there's any big massive thing we're able to accomplish each week. Sometimes it feels like we get nothing done, and we're just both Jeff and I have a weekly meeting that a weekly call that we do together, and sometimes we're like, man, what do we do next? What's our next lever to pull? And some days it's just trying to reach out to somebody, make one small little incremental changes over time, and really it makes a big difference.
There's a book that I used to give warriors. I don't know if I still do. It's called The Slight Edge. It's about those little decisions you make every day that traject your life up or down, depending on what you do. And it's very profound.
Mhm.
So if you had to go back and start over with no knowledge or experience, how would you get started in multifamily?
Find a mentor or a group. Find somebody. There's a book called 3 Feet from Gold.
Oh yeah.
It talks about three key parts, right? Stickability, and that's your perseverance through the hard times because you're going to go through some lows. The number two
Mhm.
thing it mentions is seek professional help. And so you can't do this alone. You need to get a mentor who's done the things where you're wanting to go, right? And the other part of that too is uh, I'm drawing a blank. Stickability, and
It's a great book, by the way. It talks about this miner that gave up basically 3 feet from a big gold mine and gave up. And we just talked about perseverance, a great example of perseverance. And of course, somebody stepped into that mine and got the gold. So it applies to anything. I remember when I was about to go bankrupt on a litigation support company. I started in 2010 and stuck with it, turned it around, and turned into a $10 million company that I sold a few years back. So yeah, love it.
So why'd you guys
Yeah.
pick Rod then instead of some of the other ones that you looked at?
well, that's a good question. So, there's a lot available out there that are ready and willing to take your money, but Rod invests in the vision. And I found that more attractive than anything else, which is your mindset, because you can accomplish anything that you put your mind to. And a lot of them don't focus on that. But one of the things that we did at the boot camp was we visualize where we want to be. We write down our goals, right? Because a goal that's not written down is nothing more than a wish. And so when you write those goals down, it creates this connection between you and what you're going to do over the next course of either the year, 5 year, 10 years of goals, right? And so that really set the difference between Rod's group and the Warrior group being authentic versus just other groups who are just really, there they're probably not going to have the same results.
I can tell you, I'm pretty sure not only are we like by far the least expensive, but I believe our results eclipse all the other ones combined, something I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I don't
But
doubt
let
that
me
at
just
all.
say this. Let me just say this to those of you listening. If you're considering possibly getting some guidance so you could experience the life you're wanting this year rather than later, or maybe you thought you'd be more effective if you had the guidance with the goals and all these other things that we do inside the Warrior Group, text the word crush to 72345. See if the Warrior program might be able to help you, overcome any challenges that you have to actually get off square one and make something happen and build the life you want for yourself and your family. Again, text crush to 72345.
Eric, tell them about the one that we interviewed with in Jacksonville.
Sure, yeah. So, another good thing you talked about, asking what you can do every day. Podcasts are actually very powerful, right? I mean, just if
Right.
you have nothing else to do, getting and listening to a ton of Rod's podcasts, just learning something, getting to meet people. So I was listening to a podcast, and you were interviewing a broker, and it was a great interview. The guy was really knowledgeable. And at the end, he said, "Okay, well, how can they reach out to you?" And he was a guy in Jacksonville. And I said, "Man, that's right up the road." So I looked him up, called him up, and just said, "Hey, I heard you on Rod's podcast. Hope you don't mind me reaching out, but let's go, grab lunch, do something." And so, yeah, and actually we've had several deals come through and made several LOIs with that broker. and started developing a really good relationship. And all that happened from a podcast,
Oh,
that I was listening to.
That
that's
Luke,
awesome.
by the way.
It is Luke, yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. Maybe we should get together and combine efforts, and maybe we'll have a better chance of knocking down some deals then, instead of
Absolutely, yeah.
competing
Luke's a
against
great
each
guy,
other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we interviewed with the local broker, not real estate broker, but who runs a smaller program local for like mentoring. And fast forward as what, 9 months later, we had been part of Rod's group. We already taken down the South Carolina deal. We had made some other LOIs. And that person that we were looking for as a mentor to us actually reached out and asked if we wanted to start partnering on deals with them.
There you go.
Boom. Boom.
Funny how things work out.
Yeah.
So what's that behind you that I see there, Jeff?
So I got my warrior sword, and you get this
Look at
warrior
that.
sword whenever you close on your first deal. And this sword is legit. It is the real deal. It's a wonderful piece.
Oh, that's cool. It looks really cool back there. I just now noticed it. Love it.
So at this point, you guys have done a deal, couple deals, you're moving forward. At what point, because I know people always want to hear of like, okay, buying doors, how does this translate into making money or freedom? If you guys were to kind of project it forward, like what does that look like over the next couple of years in terms of how many doors, how many more deals, where you get to a point where you can, leave your jobs and get into this and be full-time or financially free, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, so that's different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
But, Jeff and I have been talking about this. Jeff's got 6 kids. I have 2. So that, our financial needs are much, much different. But yeah, so, obviously we want to take a much more active role as we begin to, we've built a great network of people. We're, got a bunch of resources that we're starting to build relationships with. I mean, obviously lenders, property managers, insurance companies. Those are all the kind of the puzzle pieces needed to really close a deal. Obviously developing the relationships for investor relations and capital and those things. So we're really our goal is to get much more active on the acquisition side. And start really, again, working with these local brokers and taking a deal down here in Florida.
Jeff, anything you want to add in terms of timeline or what you think that might look like if you were to guess?
So I like a quote. I actually stole it from somebody else. I think Elon Musk said, try to accomplish 10 years worth of goals in 6 months. Even though you'll fail, you'll do more than what you would have done if you just set smaller goals.
You'll do more than damn anybody on the planet when you approach it like that. That was Elon, by the way. Yeah, I love that one.
And to quote Trump, if you're going to be thinking anyways, think big. So
I love
from
it.
the art of the deal. And for
right.
us, like we are very ambitious, and we're looking for opportunities where we can have multiple roles in as the partner. Like Eric mentioned, the acquisition side. And then you have lead sponsors, you have asset management and other stuff. So we're trying to learn each role, and stick to our skill set.
Where do your best ideas come from when you guys are, brainstorming and looking for ideas?
Are you passing that to me, Jeff?
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say our best ideas come from like networking and talking to people. It's really, this is a relationship business. Hanging out, talking to different folks, having lunch, meeting for a cup of coffee, and then even, obviously podcasts are a great way to start, seeing what other people are doing. There's a lot of resources out there, and I'd encourage people just to take learning as part of it, podcasts, websites, doing some, practice underwriting and things, and then take that and go actually, meet with people, have lunch, have coffee, discuss ideas, and you'd be surprised of all the things that people will bring up, and some of the stuff you'll have, oh, I've never heard of that, or I don't know anything about that, and that's, you go back and you start learning more and figuring it out.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
don't reinvent the wheel. Look to somebody who's actually accomplished something, what you want to do. And, we have people doing flex space, we have people doing storage units. And so there's just in our network of people, they're doing all these amazing things. Some people know how to lead you through getting a great due diligence, and finding the right people to do inspections and get the right lending and get the right insurance. So that network of support is critical.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, in the Warrior group, I'm starting to teach other asset classes now because so many Warriors are doing them between senior housing, student housing, industrial flex space, hotel conversions, new construction, development. I mean, it's incredible what's happening. It's not just multifamily anymore, which is very exciting. Yeah.
there's someone, a warrior that owns a yacht and rents that yacht out, right? Like, how
Yeah.
cool is that?
And a boutique hotel in Punta Cana. That's Frank. And
There
then,
you go.
I mean, Tyson's doing raising money for roll-ups and paving companies and some medical thing. I mean, just you name it. It's just such an exciting environment. Yeah.
Right.
Well, you mentioned networking, connecting. For people that want to, maybe they're in the military or they just connect with your guys' story here. For people that want to connect with you guys, what's the best way that they can go about doing that?
Yeah, they can follow us on our social media sites. We're on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, obviously, Instagram at eastcoastequitygroup.net. They can contact us at contact@eastcoastequitygroup.net or visit our website. They can sign up to join our free investor club where they can find out more information. We just like to share content that educates our audience. So anything from what a 1031 is, what is a syndication, what is a GP versus LP versus JV. And the more that we can share that knowledge, the more comfortable they become with wanting to invest and that they become a, more sophisticated investor and help for their future.
Nice, nice. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys coming on, and I'm dying to see where you're at 2 years from now because we're definitely going to have you back. So it's
Oh
great
yeah.
to see you, and thanks for sharing some wisdom, boys.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks,
We
guys.
Having us
appreciate
on.
the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah.